Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. If you're tired of censorship, outraged by government abuses, and thirsty for real insights, then you're in the right place. Get ready, because here, the fight for freedom never ends. Here's your host, Professor Nick Giordano.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. This is your host, Nick Giordano. Make sure that you follow and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, share it with your friends and your family and on social media. Get other people to subscribe and follow the podcast because there's so much to talk about. We are living through an extraordinary time. And before I jump into today's episode, I just want to take a moment and thank all the veterans for their service to this great nation on this Veterans Day. We owe you a debt of gratitude that could never, ever, ever be fully repaid. And it's because of heroes like you that we have the privilege of living in this free society. It's because of you that I have the privilege to do this podcast and to speak to the American people. I want to thank you because the sacrifices that you've made are selfless. And in a day and age where we see mostly selfishness, it's amazing to see your commitment to this nation and how it will never be forgotten. So I want to thank you for that. With that being said, it's time to jump into this because last week's election showed the resiliency of the United States and the American people. Despite the lawfare, despite the relentless rhetoric about the end of democracy and the second coming of Hitler, Americans rejected what the Democrats were selling. They voted to put Trump back into the White House, for Republicans to control the Senate, and in all likelihood, as of this recording, the Republicans haven't won the House yet, but in all likelihood, they will win the House. So Trump is set to become the 47th president of the United States, and the Democrats' meltdown continues. And it's glorious. It is glorious. We are witnessing the left-wing meltdown across the political and media ecosystem. They're still reeling, and they're blaming everything and everyone, including each other. I mean, the Harris team is blaming the Biden team is blaming the Harris team, and the Obama team is blaming both them as well. And the fact that the Harris campaign raised over $1 billion, and after just 107 days of campaigning is $20 million in debt is absolutely stunning to me. I mean, you want to talk about a waste of money, and thank the Lord they didn't win the White House. Just imagine how the Harris administration would have burned through our hard-earned tax dollars. Imagine it. It would have been a disaster. But the Democrats are completely missing why they lost this election. So many of them are so out of touch. They're blaming Biden for not getting out of the race sooner, including Nancy Pelosi, who said that Biden waited too long and he prevented the Democrat Party from having an open primary. Now, not for nothing, as a political scientist, one of the biggest events would have been an open convention where you had this primary leading up to the open convention. And then on the first day of the convention, the Democrats ended up voting and selecting their nominee. That would have been TV gold. That would have certainly ushered in excitement. Everyone would have been watching it, including myself. But they didn't do that because they didn't care. They didn't want to have an open primary. They could have done that. The entire Democrat Party and the media conspired to cover up Biden's cognitive decline for years. Had they been honest with the American public, the president would have never sought re-election in the first place. They didn't want a primary, and it also shows just how vicious politics is, how you have to pay closer attention to those closest to you. Pelosi and Obama are political jackals, and it shows how they have no loyalty to anyone. They are willing to throw anyone under the bus if they believe it gives them the political advantage. Just look at how they treated President Biden. 50 years of public service, 50 years of service to the Democrat Party, always being a loyal soldier, but the second he became a political liability to the Democrats' hold on power, they threw him overboard. Not only did they throw him overboard, they ran him over, then put it in reverse, ran him over again, then put it in drive again and ran him over a third time. Biden's legacy has been destroyed because of the Democrats' ambitions. These are not principled people. They are power-hungry narcissists. And if they don't respect those who they consider their friends, what do you think they think about you? And you don't have to go far to see what they think about millions of ordinary Americans, because all you have to do is listen to them. They're not just blaming each other. They're also blaming millions of ordinary Americans. Just take a listen to this.
And the keys, because the keys depend upon a rational, pragmatic electorate deciding based on governance whether the incumbent party should get 4 more years. And we've seen the explosion of some trends that have existed before, but not to this extent. Disinformation. Elon Musk is, I don't know how many hundreds of billions he has. He has been the director of misinformation. 2 billion views of his spreading of disinformation, not just about the economy, but about immigrants, about minorities. We've never seen disinformation at this scale. Next, we have never seen to this scale the agitation of 3 trends that have been very deeply embedded in American history: misogyny, racism, and xenophobia. The first anti-immigrant law was 1798, and Donald Trump wants to revive it.
I'm going to get to the racist, misogynist, and xenophobic part in a minute. But did you hear what he said at the beginning of that clip? I'm going to play the beginning just again so that you could really get an idea of what these people think of you.
And the keys, because the keys depend upon a rational, pragmatic electorate deciding based on governance whether the incumbent party should get 4 more years.
So when he says that America relies on a rational, pragmatic electorate, what he really means is that the millions of Americans that voted for Trump are morons. That's what he really means. It's not their fault that they lost. It's your fault. It's your fault because you were so easily duped by misinformation, despite the fact that the Democrats and the media have been the ones pushing disinformation for years. It's your fault because you are misogynistic, you're racist and xenophobic. In fact, according to this loon, we have never seen racism, misogyny, and xenophobia at this scale. Now, is this idiot kidding me? I mean, I would say that during the segregation times, it was far worse. I mean, even throughout the civil rights movement, it was far worse. We saw race riots going on. The fact is that today's America is the most open and tolerant America has ever been. And I'm tired of the nonsense and the lies. I'm tired of the constant demonization of the American people. The fact is, America and the American people are not racist. They're not misogynistic. They're not xenophobic. Are there a few idiots in our society that spout hate? Sure. But they are a fringe minority. A minority. The overwhelming majority of Americans could care less about your race, ethnicity, or gender. They don't view everything through the prism of race. That is the truth, and I want to talk more about that when we get back from this quick break. So everyone, hang tight, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. So there comes a point when you would think that the Democrats and the left would wake up. You would think that after a crushing victory like this, they would have an epiphany. I mean, not only did Trump increase his vote share when he ran for re-election in 2020, gaining an additional 11 million more votes than in 2016, he also increased his vote share this time. In 2020, he got over 74 million votes. In 2024, so far, it's 75 million votes and counting. Republicans took the Senate. They're poised to retain the House. But according to many on the left and throughout the media ecosystem, the Democrats aren't the problem. You're the problem. And here's a clip from the crazy ladies on The View. Take a listen.
And finally, we talk a lot about these different demographics and these assumptions of where they're going to go. Latinos in Texas, a district that's 97% Latino, went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why?
Misogyny.
It's on the border.
It's
the border
misogyny.
crisis is on their doorstep.
So
and they were begging people to care about it for years. We need to take some lessons.
That's what that was.
The lessons are not
Knock,
misogyny.
knock. Who's there? Oh, my gosh, it's Whoopi.
I swear, the ladies from The View are like the gift that keeps on giving. And again, it's glorious. So you have a district that's 97% Hispanic and 75% vote for Trump. But it's not because of the Biden-Harris open border policies. It's not because of the inflation. It's because Hispanics are misogynists. And that includes Latino women out there, because you cannot get 75% of the vote without a large segment of women voting for you. So even the Latino women are somehow misogynistic. Somehow, some way, they make it as if women are a monolithic group of people where abortion is the sole issue that they care about. They believe that women spend every waking moment thinking about abortions for themselves and their daughters. It really is demented logic that they're using. The number of posts about how America is an oppressive society for women and that we're returning to a time where women are silenced, where women are back in the Handmaid's Tale. It's sheer lunacy. The fact is, women in Afghanistan are oppressed. Women in Iran are oppressed. Women in countless other countries are oppressed. But I'm sorry. Women in America are not oppressed in 2024. And it's not just the loons on The View that think this way. You turn on any left-wing media, and this is what the hosts and pundits are saying. Just listen to Joe Scarborough and Al Sharpton discuss this. Take a listen.
Democrats need to be mature, and they need to be honest. And they need to say, yes, there's misogyny. But it's not just misogyny from white men. Mm-hmm. It's misogyny from Hispanic men.
Right.
It's misogyny from black men, things we've all been talking about, who do not want a woman leading them. Might be race issues with Hispanics that don't want a black woman as president of the United States. You know, the Democratic Party, I've always found when you're sitting around talking, they love to just sort of balkanize everybody into these separate groups and say, oh, white people don't like women and black people. No, it is time for the Democrats to say, okay, and you and I have talked about this before, a lot of Hispanic voters have problems with black candidates.
Right.
A lot
and
of,
with other Hispanics. You got some that don't like each other. And some of the most misogynist things I've heard going on this Get Out the Vote tour came from black men. I mean, misogynist things. So you're absolutely right. It's not simplistic. And we've got to have real honest conversations about it.
Honest conversations.
Now, I'll remind the P.A.S. report audience that this is the same Joe Scarborough who proclaimed earlier this year that President Biden was sharp as a tack. That this is, quote, the best Biden ever. Obviously, he's an imbecile. But here you have two prominent figures in Democrat circles proclaiming that blacks and Hispanics are misogynists. Not only do blacks and Hispanics hate women, they're also racist. They hate each other as well. That's how little they think of blacks and Hispanics. The second you don't do what they want, you don't do what they say, they brand you. And even the color of your skin no longer matters. And see, they create this circular firing squad. You have Rachel Maddow going on air to explain how blacks, Hispanics, Asians, and Jews, how they all voted to end our multiracial society. When I say these people are insane, understand, I'm not joking. They have lost their minds. Now, it's pretty clear that Americans don't mind voting for a black president because they did it twice in 2008 and 2012. And I think most Americans are like me. I could care less about voting for a woman president. I just want one that's competent. And Kamala Harris certainly is not competent. She's thoroughly incompetent. And you know, these frauds, they wouldn't be saying that Americans are misogynistic if a conservative woman lost the presidential race, because to them, the self-anointed guardians of democracy, what they really care about is unwavering allegiance to their radical ideology. That's what it all comes down to. And it's amazing how they constantly scream threats to democracy. But when people actually engage in the democratic process and go vote, they don't like democracy so much anymore because people voted for Trump. It shows you. It's all an illusion. They're all frauds. It's funny how this works. Now they're saying that it's because of Elon Musk and X. They single-handedly are responsible for getting Trump and Republicans elected, and that if the government shut down or heavily regulated social media and X, then Harris would have won. Think about that for a second. They are openly saying that the government should be the one to control all speech, that the government should dictate what we can and cannot say. It's exactly like Orwell's 1984 dystopia. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final and most essential command. That's what they want to create. They're saying that the left needs to adopt the rights tactics. They need to start social media companies. They need to start podcasts and do more podcasting. You control 94% of the media. You control all of Hollywood. I mean, are you kidding me? You control all of academia. And it's people don't like what you're selling. Get a clue. But they can't get a clue because to them, It's party allegiance above all else, including family and friends. Now, some of you are probably wondering what I'm talking about. Well, take a listen to this clip. This is a Yale psychiatrist, Yale, one of the premier schools in the United States. Yale psychiatrist Amanda Calhoun on Joy Reid Show. Take a listen.
Know someone voted that way. Do you recommend, just from a psychological standpoint, being around them? We got the holidays coming up.
So I love that you asked this question because, there is a push, I think just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely not. So if you are going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood, and it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why.
These people are really sick, and she's a psychiatrist. Joy Reid, she's always been a racist and a homophobe. Why she has a show, I can't answer that question. She shouldn't be on air. She's a disgusting human being. All she does is promote hatred and engage in this horrible racial politics, seeking to divide our society. But I want people to think about what Calhoun said, a psychiatrist. She's basically telling people to cut ties to anyone who voted for Trump and refuse to celebrate the upcoming holidays with them. This is so dark that she's telling people that family and friends, if you have these political differences, you have to terminate these relationships, even if these relationships have brought your life value and joy and worth, right? Kamala Harris's campaign was based on joy, but the joy is dead. It's so screwed up. But then again, this is the new Democrat Party. 2 weeks ago, I played a sound clip of Michelle Obama, who's given a speech to thousands of supporters, where she told women that their husbands are bitter and angry. And she instructed them to vote for Harris, not tell their spouses, essentially attempting to tell women that they need to be suspicious of their spouses. Now, listen, if you're in a marriage where someone has to dictate the way you vote, and you have to hide your own opinions, maybe it's time for you to get out of that marriage. And this must be a Democrat phenomenon, because the men I know actually value their wife's opinion. They don't look down on their spouses. They actually respect them. But again, according to Democrat logic, you're not allowed to have alternative opinions. You're not allowed to think differently from the party apparatus. But one of the best things about this election, one of the best things that came out of it, it was a thorough rejection of identity politics. It was a thorough rejection of diversity, equity, and inclusion, the DEI movement. And I'm going to explain that when we get back from this quick break. So everyone hang tight. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the P.A.S. Report podcast. So one of the biggest things to come out of the election was the thorough rejection of identity politics and DEI. And hopefully we are beginning to see the death of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the proper death that it deserves, because it's a toxic ideology, a virus that seeks to lump everyone together, lump people into these groups and categories, label and blame each group based on perceived grievances and victimhood. And it's not bringing us together. It's about driving us apart along artificial lines. I mean, the end result is nothing but misery and failure as they indoctrinate people to be suspicious of their fellow American. It's a tribal way of thinking. And there has never been a successful tribal country that has ever succeeded. Ever. You have the DEI ideology where hard work and merit are replaced with mediocrity. And we saw that in the vice president. We see that in Kamala Harris. The only reason she was selected to be the vice president of the United States was because she was a black woman. Joe Biden even said so himself. And throughout her tenure as vice president, she proved to herself to be thoroughly incompetent. So thoroughly incompetent that the media was talking about Biden ditching her from the ticket in 2024. And I'm not talking about 2 years ago. I'm talking about right before Biden's disastrous debate performance, and even following it, where they were saying that she's dragging him down. She's dragging the ticket down, and they need to get rid of it. She is the symbol of the DEI movement, running a campaign that raised $1 billion and ended up $20 million in debt. There you go. See, personal responsibility and self-reliance, two important characteristics of the American identity. With DEI, that's replaced with a hierarchy of oppression. People aren't judged by their actions or achievements. Instead, they're judged by a bunch of superficial nonsense. What's the color of your skin? What gender do you subscribe to? And over the last few years, this ideology has infiltrated every aspect of our society, all based on conformity and stifling individual liberty. And here's the reality. Americans are tired of being pitted against each other over things that should be irrelevant, over things that are out of our control. And this election shows that people want to move past this nonsense. They're tired of being told that skin color, gender, or who they're supposed to identify as matters more than what they actually accomplish and who they are as individuals. Americans are standing up. They're saying enough is enough. DEI was sold to us as some great societal equalizer. They claimed it's going to make our workplaces fairer, our schools more inclusive, that it's going to close the academic achievement gap, that it's going to make our culture more tolerant. But in practice, it's actually done the exact opposite. Our culture was already tolerant. Our schools, the academic achievement gap is at its widest levels because the Democrats shut down schools for 2 years. Our workplaces are more divisive and toxic than ever before because people are now bringing their politics into the workplace. DEI has done nothing but foster resentment, divide colleagues and classmates, label people based on arbitrary characteristics instead of their actual character. And Americans see right through it. The election, it says it all. The election speaks volumes. People want real unity, not phony, divisive branding under DEI. They're rejecting the idea that we should see ourselves as perpetual victims or oppressors. They're tired of being told that America is inherently broken and racist and oppressive. The truth is, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, people love this country. And they know that despite its flaws, it offers freedom and opportunity like nowhere else on earth. That's why we have an immigration problem in the first place. Yet DEI, it denies that foundational truth by framing America as a place in need of constant moral correction by bureaucrats and activists that don't know their ass from their elbow. This election is a mandate to get rid of DEI policies that serve no purpose whatsoever other than to divide and control us. Americans want a society where merit is rewarded, hard work is valued, and where everyone has a fair shot regardless of their background. And it's not just about getting rid of DEI. It's about restoring common sense, because that's what it comes down to. It's not a Republican, Democrat, liberal, or conservative issue. It's about common sense. It's about treating people as individuals again, not as representatives of identity groups. But now, as Republicans take the reins, they have an obligation. They have an obligation to dismantle the failed experiment because millions, hundreds of millions to billions of our taxpayer dollars are going to this failed DEI experiment. So they have to root it out. They have to root it out in government, in education, corporate policies. The voters have spoken. The message is clear. Get back to the basics. Get back to treating people equally. Take care of things like inflation. Take care of things like the border. End some wars. We don't want to see a World War III break out. Fix our problems within our society. Stop forcing divisive ideologies onto every part of American life. DEI had its run, and its run wasn't even necessary. Americans have put it on notice, and it's time for our leaders to take this message seriously, return to policies that actually matter to us, and make it those policies the shared values, the real opportunities for everyone. The death of DEI isn't just necessary, it's long overdue. And you look at the shifts at voting patterns. You look at the communities that were once considered strongholds for identity politics are now embracing candidates who promote unity and individual merit and America first, regardless of the color of one's skin. This isn't about left or right. It's about rejecting an ideology that seeks to pit us against each other. And now that Republicans are in charge, they have to go big and go bold. It's time that they seize this opportunity to lead and show that they can lead competently, that they could competently govern. And we have to, as Americans, we have to keep the pressure on them for real governance of all Americans, not just Republicans, not just Democrats, but all Americans. And I'll talk more about that when we get back from this quick break. So everyone, hang tight. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the P.A.S. Report podcast. So I ended the last segment about how it's now time for the Republicans to lead and that they have to show that they're competent, that they can govern effectively. And I'm not going to break down the Trump agenda in this episode. I plan on tackling that next week. But Republicans have a golden opportunity to show what leadership looks like. We can no longer accept the weak-kneed Republican leadership that we've become accustomed to in the House and the Senate. America has real challenges: inflation, out-of-control national debt, a failed education system, broken border, and a whole bunch of other problems. But when it comes to Republicans, the one thing that we've witnessed time and time again over the last few decades is that they talk a good game when it comes to the idea of limited government and fiscal responsibility. They talk a good game when it comes to things like accountability. But once they get into office, these issues go by the wayside, and they act more like Democrats than Republicans. Now, the Senate Majority Leader is a critically important position. Now that McConnell is stepping down, we can get some real leadership in. But the feckless Republicans like McConnell, they love the status quo. They're not going to go away without a fight. And we already see the parlor games are being played out there. McConnell wants to vote for the next Republican leaders to be by secret ballot because he does not want Trump or conservatives to influence the process and elect Rick Scott as the next majority leader. And the Republican establishment, they want John Thune. Now, John Thune is a good man. I'm not bashing him. But he's more of a McConnell's brand of politics. And then you have John Cornyn of Texas, who shouldn't be anywhere near the majority position. Now, Senate Republicans have to stand firm. They have to vote for Senator Scott. He is one of the few with the cojones to enact the legislative agenda America needs. As far as the House goes, I like Speaker Johnson. He should remain in his position. Understand, Republicans have been handed a mandate by the American people, and it's time to act on it. This isn't a moment for half measures or timid moves. Americans are fed up with the empty promises. They're fed up with being all talk, no action. And Republicans need to prove they are different. They have the White House, the Senate, and likely the House. This is their chance to show what true leadership looks like. For years, the GOP has had its chance to articulate a clear vision. Cut down bureaucratic bloat, secure the borders, restore sanity to our spending, strengthen education. But all too often, they constantly fall short. With this victory, we cannot afford to squander the opportunity. Because if the Republicans cannot achieve after this victory, then they don't deserve to be in leadership anymore. We don't want the same lip service that we've been given over the years. We need leaders who are going to tackle inflation head on, who are going to bring down the price of energy, who are going to prioritize the American people, who are going to prioritize American jobs. The American people, we don't want to hear excuses anymore. We want to see results, especially when it comes to the ridiculous spending. Republicans need to get the fiscal house in order. They have to start cutting the unnecessary spending. They have to root out the waste. They have to rein in this runaway national debt. For too long, Republicans have promised fiscal responsibility, and they failed. They just rubber stamp budgets that balloon the debt even more. That has to end now. They need to show the country that they're serious about financial discipline. We need to show the country that we know how to manage budgets. Then you have the border. Americans voted for border security, not open borders. And Republicans finally have to pass a strict border security measure. This administration will enforce immigration laws. I could guarantee you that. But it doesn't mean that we don't need another strict border bill. It doesn't mean that we don't need to reform the legal immigration process to make it easier, where people don't have to spend years to get people into the United States, particularly people that are going to provide value within our society. We need to end the ridiculous sanctuary policies that we've witnessed over the years, putting our communities at risk, the most vulnerable communities at risk. The Biden-Harris administration left a mess. It's not going to be easy to clean up, but the GOP needs to show that they are up to the task. Again, I'm going to get into the issues in future episodes, but for right now, I want Republicans to stand up for free speech to protect Americans from government abuses, government overreach, and this includes dismantling the surveillance state. It has to be one of the top priorities. They have to eliminate the bureaucratic overreach that we've seen in agencies that have been weaponized against political opponents, that have been ideologically infected. We have to ensure that free speech remains a fundamental right. Democrats have trampled on our liberties, and Republicans have allowed them to do it. Some Republicans have actually supported this to be done. But Republicans must show that they now are going to protect the American people and our right to speak freely. This is a historic opportunity for the GOP to deliver on their promises. The American people, they have handed them the keys, but those keys come with expectations. And I will hold Republicans accountable. I will call Republicans out on this show. I'm not here to defend either political party. I'm not here to defend any politician. And if the Republicans fail to lead boldly and decisively, I will call them out. And they risk losing the faith of the very people who put them in power. The era of weak leadership is over. Republicans have to rise to the occasion. And it's up to us, we the American people, regardless of Republican or Democrat ideology, to hold their feet to the fire. This is the moment to govern with courage and conviction. The American people rejected what the Democrats were offering, and they're watching. They're not going to settle for anything less this time. Now, if you found the content of this episode informative, give the PAS Report a 5-star rating. Take 30 seconds to write a good review for the PAS Report on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And share this episode. Share it with your family and friends and on social media. I have a great interview lined up that's going out on Wednesday, so make sure you tune in Wednesday. You're not going to want to miss this episode. I want to thank you for joining me, and I'll be back again with another great episode of the PAS Report podcast.
Thank you for listening to the PAS Report. Don't forget to rate, share, and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss an episode. For more exclusive content and updates, visit us at PASreport.com and follow Professor Giordano on all social media platforms at PAS Report.